Welcome to The Explainer. You know that feeling, right? Where you're in a constant battle with your own mind just to stay focused? Well, today we're diving deep into the neuroscience of attention. We're talking about what's really happening in your brain when you concentrate, why it loves to wander off, and maybe, just maybe, how you can start to take back the controls.
So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll get into that internal battle for your attention. Then we're going to meet the brain's master gatekeeper, the part that decides what you actually focus on. From there, we'll see how practices like meditation can literally rewire this whole system. And get this, it doesn't just change your focus, but what your brain actually finds rewarding. All right, let's jump in.
First up, let's talk about something we all know way too well. That constant struggle to keep your mind on one thing when, let's be honest, it seems to have a mind of its own.
Seriously, think about it for a second. You sit down, you're determined to read that chapter or finish that report, and what happens? 2 minutes later, you're mentally replaying a conversation from yesterday or planning what's for dinner. It happens to all of us. It's almost like your brain has its own secret to-do list.
And it turns out, science has a name for this. It's called the default mode. It's your brain's natural setting, its go-to state when it isn't busy with something else. Now, this isn't all bad. It's where a lot of our planning and self-reflection happens. But here's the kicker. When that wandering becomes too rigid, when we get stuck in that mode and can't switch it off, it can start to really mess with our well-being.
Okay, so what's physically happening inside our heads when we're trying to focus? Let's zoom in on this one incredibly powerful but often overlooked little structure that basically acts as the command center for your attention. Everybody, meet the pulvinar nucleus. It's tucked away deep inside a region of the brain called the thalamus. The best way to think about the pulvinar is like the master switchboard operator for your brain. It's constantly directing this massive flow of information, deciding, okay, this gets your attention, and nope, that gets ignored.
And think about what that really means. This little hub isn't just a simple spam filter for stuff like a ticking clock in the background. No, it's a super sophisticated coordinator. It's linking up different parts of your brain, it's flagging information that's emotionally important to you, and it's deciding what gets through based on what you're trying to do. It really is the gatekeeper of your conscious experience.
So this gatekeeper, the pulvinar, is basically the referee in a constant, epic tug-of-war between two huge brain networks. And these two are always competing for control over what you're experiencing at any given moment.
So in one corner, you've got the default mode network, the DMN. You can think of this as your brain's inner storyteller. It's the one that's daydreaming, thinking about the past, worrying about the future, thinking about, well, you. And in the other corner, you have the central executive network, or CEN. This is your task manager. This is the part that powers up when you need to buckle down and focus on a specific goal.
Now, here's the really cool part. These two networks are not supposed to be on at the same time. In a truly focused mind, they work just like a seesaw. When the task manager, the CEN, goes up, the storyteller, the DMN, is supposed to go down. This perfect push and pull, this balance, is what neuroscientists call being anti-correlated.
Well, this brings up a huge question, right? Can we actually get better at controlling this seesaw? Can we train our brains to be less distractible and, more focused when we want to be?
To figure this out, scientists did what scientists do. They got out the big guns, the fMRI scanners, to literally peer inside the brains of people who had been meditating for years and compare them to a group of non-meditators. They wanted to see if all that mental training leaves a real physical mark on how these attention networks operate, even when they're just chilling out.
And the results were, honestly, pretty striking. Just at their normal, baseline resting state, the experienced meditators had way less activity in their default mode network. Their inner storyteller was just quieter. And they showed a much stronger anti-correlation. That seesaw was working way more effectively between their two attention networks.
This chart makes it crystal clear, and it points to something really profound. Meditation isn't just about feeling calm for a few minutes. It seems to forge a permanent change, a trait. With consistent practice, these meditators had physically rewired their brains, making it easier to quiet down that wandering mind and let their focus network take charge.
But the story doesn't stop there. This rewiring goes even deeper than just managing distractions. It turns out that strengthening our attention can actually change our relationship with things like desire, expectation, and even pleasure itself. See, our brains are basically prediction machines. They're constantly guessing what's going to happen next. And when reality doesn't match that prediction, your brain fires off this powerful signal called a prediction error. This is basically the feeling of surprise on a neurological level, and boy is it a great way to grab our attention.
So to study this, scientists set up a pretty clever little experiment. They taught people to expect a nice, rewarding sip of juice a few seconds after they saw a yellow light. They scanned their brains while that anticipation was building. And then, when the juice was either delivered or, plot twist, sometimes it wasn't.
And when they looked at the brain scans, whoa, it was obvious. Whenever what people expected didn't happen, whether it was a happy surprise of getting juice they didn't expect or the disappointment of not getting the juice they did expect, their brain lit up like a Christmas tree. These prediction errors act like a giant neurological flag saying, hey, pay attention, this is important.
And this right here is where it all comes together. If practices like meditation can strengthen our ability to control our attention, to quiet that part of our brain that's always chasing the next thing, it might actually change how our brain reacts to these prediction errors. Maybe instead of constantly being yanked around by surprise rewards and unmet expectations, we can actually recalibrate our entire reward system. Maybe we can start to find the reward in stillness itself and break free from that cycle of always wanting and being disappointed.
So after this whole journey through our brain's attention hubs, these competing networks, and all these reward signals, what is the big takeaway here? What's the bottom line?
Well, the science is really solid on this. This quote here basically says it all. Practices that train your attention create a real, physical reconfiguration in your brain. Your focus network literally gets better at telling your wandering mind network to quiet down, and this leads to lasting long-term changes in how your brain just operates.
And this leads us to the most powerful and, I think, the most hopeful point of all. Your ability to focus is not some fixed thing you were born with. It is a skill. And like any skill, you can train it. It's like a muscle. The parts of your brain that support attention get stronger the more you use them. Your brain is built to adapt. So that leaves us with one last big thought. The science gives us the instruction manual for our own minds. But the real question is, now that you know a little more about how the machinery actually works, what are you going to decide is truly worthy of your most precious, finite resource, your attention?